All right, welcome to Resilient Voices and Beyond. I'm so excited to have another episode for you guys. I believe this will be episode 27, and it has been a long road, but because of the great support and just kindness from alumni and professionals and just people just rallying around, I've been able to bring a lot of different guests and different roles and different positions, and I'm just excited to see how this is translating to you guys as an audience. But without further ado, I'm so excited for the guest that I have today. I think when I first started speaking, I met her, and I don't know, I actually cried, gave me one of the biggest and greatest hugs and stuff like that. And I'm just excited because I get to be able to bring to you her story, but also what she's been doing and what she believes in and so forth for you guys. But I'm gonna have her introduce herself.
Well, hello. Thank you, Michael, for having me. I'm Cherish Fields. It's a pleasure to be here, to be able to even see you have your podcast and doing your thing and having a platform for other people to voice their stories and just advocacy, right? And I know that's something that you've been passionate about. And that's something that we have, alike. So I'm a social worker, but I am also a mom of 2 babies, a little girl and a little boy. I'm my wife. I'm also a business owner to Cherish Fields Solutions, which is a consulting company. And then also I'm a alumni from the foster care system. A little bit about that is what's unique, I would say, about that is that I spent time in 2 different states throughout my foster care journey. So I have some comparison of experience with that, but then also another unique experience is not only did I grow up in the system and have time and lived experience there, but I also became a social worker and worked in child welfare or work in child welfare, in addition to the fact that I've been a foster parent. And I've worked in various direct positions working in the foster care system. So I've been, licensing worker. I've worked in direct foster care, working with the parents and the children. I've done the testifying in court on behalf of children. So I've kind of been all over, the place, and have accumulated a lot of experiences in foster care and adoption. So I'm happy to be able to speak on that and be here with Michael.
Wow. I just want to say thank you. And I say that because, as well as I know, when alumni, get done their experience, it's either like, yeah, I'm just gonna live my life and I want nothing else to do. But, you took the initiative, and found your way to be able to give back. And I like to think, not just only give back, but make it better. By being able to be there as a person with lived experience to support people who has lived experience too. So thank you for that and appreciate it. It's just a wealth of knowledge. So without further ado, I'm gonna kind of get into my first question. You kind of started to tell us a little bit about it, but if you can kind of give us a little bit of your experience in care, and I don't know if you aged out or anything, but what did that look like trying to make it towards adulthood for you?
So for myself, it was a long journey. So me and foster care had this, I want to say we had an abusive relationship because I started off in the care at young when I was like an infant, came out of it. And then foster care said, no, I ain't done with you yet, and decided to bring me back. And I ended up in foster care again around, 11 or 12 years old. And in that time, that's ultimately I stayed, so it's kind of being in a relationship you just can't like get away from. And then of course, as I aged out, I kind of came back to it, but in a different way. I had more control. But to answer your question, my journey was, my mother struggled with drugs and prostitution, and she was young. And I think she just had some life events that really impacted her. And that really set the course of the lifestyle that she chose. And I believe that, after speaking with my mother, I believe that she loved us, but then could not love us the way we needed to be loved. And so she continued to have children. I am actually one of on her side, I'm one of 7. And then my father, she doesn't have any more children with my father. It's just me. But he had about 4 children as well. So I'm kind of in the intermix of those. And ultimately, it started off with just 3 of us. I have an older brother and then a younger sister underneath me, and we're about 2 years apart each side. And we came into care together. My brother, though, got adopted out with, his paternal side of the family. My sister ended up being adopted by pretty much the first family, or close to the first family that took her in. And then I kind of ended up staying, and languishing a bit as a young child. And I was not adopted until I reached about 5 years old. And throughout that adoption, there was a lot of, I would say, challenges that were present, because I feel like now looking back on it, the child welfare system, I think it means well. It's been, put in place, to help kids who are at risk of abuse and neglect. But I'm gonna be frank, like in that adoption, there were so many challenges with the fact that there was no understanding of trauma from my adoptive mother. And then I'm just this little kid that has probably seen and experienced so much that I'm responding in ways that really is, challenging for her as a single mother who's, just adopted this 5-year-old. And then myself kind of understanding her role in my life, truly, right? Really accepting that, and having a lot of identity issues and stuff around that. So we went through the adoption and being in the adoption until I was probably like around 11 or 12. Like I said, we were in Michigan initially, and we wound up in Georgia. And to be honest, even through my adoption, it was very unstable. It was very foster care-like in the way that we really didn't stay in one place. We moved all around. So I had been in all types of different states, went through homelessness. I was already experiencing some of those same conditions prior to re-entering foster care. I was just older. So by the time we landed in Georgia, me and my adoptive mother had some challenges in our relationship. And that really caused other issues, and to where we sought help, within the community through community mental health. And it was decided that I would go into a shelter, as a break almost. And in the shelter, I think a lot of my internal challenges, just really kind of, I was searching for help and someone to understand. And ultimately, it caused more friction between me and my adoptive mother. And because of what she was going through, I ended up basically staying in foster care. She passed away when I was 14. I was still in foster care. They were still working their plan to reunify us, which I'll be honest, Michael, and all those that are listening, like for my story, I didn't want to return home. We had been through so much and I was tired. And I was carrying a lot that people didn't give me credit for, because I was raised in a family that, in my adopted side, where I was constantly told, kids don't have emotions. My feelings don't matter. You don't have feelings. You're a child. That was the culture. They mean well, right? It was like, listen, do as I say, not as I do. All these like various things. And so I really felt limited, right? I felt very alone, very confused, very angry, sad, all the feels. And so when I went into foster care, I was actually happy. Like that was like, in my eyes, it was the start of a new journey. And I had heard, as an older person going to foster care, you get new clothes, right? So when I entered into literally going into foster care in Georgia, a part of it was I started off in juvenile justice and ended up getting locked up because I was running away from home because of the constant, conflicts that we were having. And when the judge kind of looked at my case, she had determined to say, you know what, yeah, I'm going to put you here in the foster care. And I was happy. And she was like, I didn't have any clothes at the time. So I was like, I can get some new clothes. I have probably a better, a bed, because of all the moving. And, ultimately, what I thought was going to be good, it wasn't, like for me, as a teenager, we all know, and I know many people have heard this before, but society tells teenagers once you hit like 12, 13, you don't nobody wants you, especially if you are in foster care, the juvenile justice system. And so I received those same messages. My caseworkers couldn't wait to say, hey, there's no homes for you. Act right. So basically deal with whatever you gonna deal with in the home because that's all we got for you. And it was really interesting, right? And so my first home was I experienced some racial stuff, with that family. So I got out of there real quick. The next home was just like emotionally abusive. They were just calling me names and not even for good reason. Like I literally can't recall a reason why you would call somebody stupid. You know what I mean? And not the joking way, like, oh, you're so stupid. No. It was literally mean and degrading and critical. So I was out of there like, no, I'm very good with you. I never got into a foster home where I had felt safe. And then there was another home that we were in. It was a big house. I was excited because the house looked like a mansion. And this person really just wanted the kids' money. And people be like, oh, there's no money to be made in foster care. But the reality is, I'm going to tell you, like, I got a story, like in that home, when that person was very strategic on taking kids that just entered care because there was a clothing allowance that she would get. And she would take that clothing allowance and go down and go spend it on things that whatever she wanted. But all the kids took care of each other. There was no adults in that house unless there was a call to say the caseworker was coming. Then everything was all good again, right? She was there and cooking and everything else. But I never got my initial clothing. I never got the things that I needed because she was taking the money, this part, and she would do all the kids like that, so it's like, and she was never present, but nobody would say anything because guess what? This all we got, so something is better than nothing, right? At least you kind of know a little bit about this. Well, for me, that wasn't good. So I ended up going into, after I exhausted all the foster, homes, I was back at the defects office is what we call it. And, me and my loud mouth, they said I should have been a lawyer. Let me tell you, I had me a mouth. I was very much so labeled the one who had no respect for authority. Really the rebel. I was going to speak my mind, I was going to say what I needed to say. And I was passionate. You couldn't get me to back down. And so I was at the defects office and I was raising all types of ruckus saying I wanted to speak to the head, whoever was the director or the supervisor, because whoever was choosing my homes and my placements needed to get a clue. Because I'm like, who are y'all like, what's the process? Why are you getting these people to take care of kids like myself and they don't care about kids, right? So anyway, I ended up staying in a waiting room, and there was a woman in there. And this woman, she was a Black woman, and she was like, just, waiting. But then she was like, I heard her on the phone a little bit, and then she was she was saying something about some church or some youth or something. I think that's what really kind of started the conversation. And she had this cool Southern accent. So she was from New Orleans. And I was just like impressed. And so I was like, you know what? Let me ask her some questions. And I started asking her questions. I said, do you take teens? And she was like, no. And I was like, well, will you? And she was like, okay. I don't know. I never thought about it before. And so I ended up securing my own placement. And just told her like, hey, you know, what do y'all do? And she told me she goes to church and stuff. And I was excited because I was like, oh, you go to church? Do they have a youth, ministry? And she was talking about the youth ministry where they do like step dances, they do lock-ins, all these things. So I'm like, oh yeah, I'm trying to do stuff like that. Right. And so, so she agreed to let me stay the night, and work a plan to make it gradual. And so I ended up staying with her. And it was good for a little bit, but unfortunately it ended up being where behind closed doors, not only was she became emotionally abusive, but I was sexually abused in that home. So, after that, I'll be honest, I was over it. My adopted mother had passed away, during my stay in that particular home. And so there was so much hitting me at one time that I was just like, nope, you can't pay me to go to a foster home. I will run away and take care of myself before this system puts me somewhere else. Like, it's just not going to happen. So I ended up going into group homes. And so I ended up in a children's home in Georgia where I pretty much stayed until I was about almost 16 years old. And then honestly, there was somebody that knew my adoptive mom that came in my life and was like, hey, we want to take care of you, bring you back so that you can get a better education. And I ended up traveling back to Michigan under the opportunity to be adopted again and for stability and better education and so on and so forth. And that ended up going awry. So I was up here, things were supposed to get better. And yet again, I'm hit at the door, with this barrier of some more like abuse. And it was just conflict. It was personality conflict, and it just did not work. It didn't work itself out. And I was just being a normal kid, a normal teenager. And so by the time I was all done, to be honest with you, with all the experiences that I had, I really believed in my head that I had like, how I always say it's like Midas could touch something and turn to gold. Cherish touch something, it dies, or it doesn't work, or it destroys it. So I always feel like, okay, anything that I touch, it never works out. It's something wrong with me. I had it in my head that something was literally had to be wrong with me, because I didn't even have to do nothing for something to go crazy or, mess up or something like that. So anyway, when that situation happened, I was still in the custody of Georgia. And to be honest with you, I just rallied my school. I was doing very good in school. I had pretty much put everything that I could in school because that's where I felt rewarded. That's where I felt safe. I had a circle of friendships, and I was thriving. That's where my confidence was. I knew that I could do schoolwork, right? And then I was also thriving socially in school with being like the president of Black Student Union in the National Honor Society. I was an athlete. I was in track and field. So there was just things that were very fulfilling for me, that I was thriving in. So I just rallied my principals, vice principals, staff members, everybody to basically write on my behalf so that I could stay, because the one thing that I said the system couldn't take from me was my education. And at that time I was 17 years old. And I was like, if I move back down to Georgia, though I love Georgia, I knew that I might not have a chance educationally. Like I wouldn't graduate with a high school diploma. And that was very important to me at that time. And so I ended up applying to colleges and things of that nature as well. So I applied to every college I could possibly, and I pretty much applied to any college as long as I had the strength to do it, meaning like I wasn't tired of filling out applications and whatever. So however I could get that voucher to take care of my application or get my application paid, I filled it out until I just said, you know what? I'm tired of writing all these essays now. Now I done put enough out. So it's probably maybe 10 applications I had. that I put out. And then I got responses back. So I was anticipating, just like my peers, like, okay, everybody had that season in their lives in my high school where it was like, all right, we're going to see who all got in where, and then we talk about it. And it was cool because I was able to be a part of that conversation and what was going on that season in everybody's life. And I got into a number of schools, but I ended up taking a full ride scholarship to the University of Michigan. And that is ultimately what saved me from having to return to Georgia. It also saved me to where I could graduate, from high school. And it also, be it that my birthday, was in August, it also allowed me to go to college early. And so I was able to really kind of transition and stay with friends. And had somebody kind of take me in until it was time for me to go to college, just temporarily until I went on the campus. And so, yeah, I definitely aged out. It was a unique situation because Michigan was more so of a courtesy state supervising me, whereas I really was a ward of the state of Georgia. But of course, there still wasn't that parental guidance there. So when I went off to college, that was a whole new journey. So that's a little bit about, my foster early years of my foster care journey, this back and forth that I experienced.
Wow. You mentioned a lot of things and you dropped a lot of good nuggets about your experience. And it just attests to the resiliency and perseverance that you had and learned to have. It resonated deeply with me because I started on the juvenile side. Like I had experienced abuse way before going into the juvenile system. It wasn't until I got personally tired and numbed out mentally that I started to fight back, which eventually led me in the juvenile side. And I ended up becoming a ward of the state and then being a dual ward before I even became into foster care. And it was interesting that you mentioned, a part to play in adoption or having, placements and stuff like that was that juvenile side. And that's something that I face. And it was kind of removed from me because the stigmas and labels placed upon me having been on the juvenile side, being considered like a delinquent or whichever. And that ultimately had me age out of the foster care system. But my next question for you is, you went through all that, and what struck you to decide to go work in this field?
I'll give you another side of the story. So I said, my aging out happened, really kind of experience was in college, and I didn't have like a lot of parental guidance. Well, I'm gonna tell you, my first year in college, I think was really when I learned that I was trauma. Like I had PTSD. Well, probably about my second year, I realized that, because my first year, of course, we all going to college and we're all experiencing this independence. And so I had that same experience. But, one of the things that I talked about, it's funny because I was having this conversation with my husband yesterday. And I was saying, I was really light years ahead of my peers in college. But because so badly I wanted to fit in, I dummied myself down and really became very naive, to things that I knew probably a little bit better, but at the same time, my maturity and what I had experienced was very incongruent with my age, my body, and the stage of life, like where my placement was in life, meaning I was in college, right? But I had experienced things that 30, 20, 30, 40-year-olds had, maybe had endured. And it was hard, right, to adjust in that way. And so by my sophomore year, I had a mental health breakdown. to the point I couldn't even control it anymore. My anger had literally manifested itself into a uncontrollable vulnerability. Like my body said, no more will you be strong. It said, no more can you hide. And I literally, my body broke down, in a way that I would have anxiety spells, panic attacks, insomnia. I mean, it was so bad that I lost so much weight. I couldn't even stand the smell of food. Like I could not eat. And my body would have trembles like nonstop, could not control it. And so for me, that really, and what triggered that is because after my first year and all of that I was trying to adapt to, I also felt so alone that I went out to seek my biological parents, my biological family. And in that journey, there was a lot that was uncovered because you got to think about it. All that I knew was from my adopted family. I had no information really about my birth family and my life prior to being adopted, really. I just knew, I did know that I was adopted, but I didn't know the story, right? And matter of fact, the only information I had was because one time my adopted mother got pissed at me, and she ended up just blurting out telling me that my mother was, a drug addict and I think a stripper, she said, or a prostitute. And so it was a piercing moment, an impactful moment, because it was very hurtful and I didn't know how to digest it. So I knew there was something there, but in my mind, my mom was dead. This woman who birthed me was deceased. And so for me, all of that was being uncovered and I was unpacking really triggered this mental health breakdown. And through that, it also forced me, there was like this battle of my past and all that I had been through that I was basically forced to say, you better deal with it or you succumb to it. And being the personality that I had, I ain't succumbing to nothing without a fight. And so it triggered this real warrior inside of me, if you want to call it, the soldier that I was and that I am. It's like, okay, you ready to go to war? Well, let's do it. And so for me, I literally went hard in therapy, reading books. I had to get better because I hated the feeling. I hated the what my body was going through. I hated not having the control of it. And I just wanted better. I wanted my life to be better. And so I say this because this was really the start of why I chose to go in the direction that I went in being a professional in child welfare. Because you're right, you said something earlier, Michael, like the first instinct is to get the heck away from foster care child welfare. And I know people who did it. They don't even talk about their stories. They refuse to bring it up because they just want to be quote unquote normal, right? They want to live their life and not talk about what has happened, why they were in the system, or even be judged and placed in a box of the foster care child, right? So I get all of that. And in my process of healing, my suffering, because it was a long suffering that I endured. It didn't go away overnight. Therapy didn't heal it in a couple weeks. It was a marathon, and it still is a marathon. And for me, I got to a place when I finally accomplished graduating from college, that to me was the cement of, you can do it. You are incredibly strong. Because I looked back from mistakes that I had made, bad choices, bad judgments, things that I had to deal with that weren't my choices, things that I realized that really were in my blood that I just kind of inherited, that I then also had to work against, and that was trying to work against me. All of those things kind of like really came to a surface for me when I graduated college, because then that's like, you could do it. So then something in me, Michael, my last year, something in me said, if I can do it, what about these other kids? They need to know that they can do it too. Like, this isn't just for me. Like, this can't be just for me. I can't experience this deep and this very, very hurtful, painful process for me to hold it in for myself. And then to also choose healing all for myself. I said, no. There was something in me. I literally had an unction, an urge. It just literally came into my spirit. It was like, do a conference. So I was in what we call the fishbowl at the University of Michigan. And I was just typing away, and I have no idea where the thought came from, I just did it. And I sent it to literally our like admissions team and all the people that I could think of that I had built relationships, telling them it's time for us to do a conference for kids in foster care. It's time for us to gather youth that have been through these type of situations so that they can hear from someone just like them and that can attest to how difficult and challenging the journey is, but not to be the victim of it, not to succumb to it, but to overcome it. And that it didn't really have to be really life, allowing life to just happen to you, but you being able to say, you know what, things happen in life, but I refuse to allow life to just happen without me saying, no, I'm going to rise up and stand up, and I'm going to show life who I am. And that's literally what I wanted to do. And so I called it Rising Above the Odds Against Me Leadership Conference. And I had various speakers that literally followed a framework that I created through my healing process. That was literally, if you got to deal with this first to heal, then you can deal with this, and then you'll see the results in this. And all of those people were also people that had helped me in my journey. They were all pivotal in that. So I literally tried to replicate the pieces to my healing for those attendees. And it was very well attended. I did it for 3 years. And honestly, Michael, that inspired me, hearing the stories and handing the mic over to other kids, because it wasn't about me. It was about them and helping them to find the courage to speak up for themselves. Because I don't believe in being a voice for the voiceless. I believe in giving the voiceless a mic of their own to speak for themselves. Because I can't speak for your experience, but I can speak for mine. And you can relate and connect to it. That will then give you the courage to speak. And that's what I wanted to do. And so from that point, I went and I ended up, a friend of mine had encouraged me to apply to the School of Social Work. I got into the School of Social Work. And I mean, the rest is history. I kind of just went and followed that path. And it wasn't because I wanted to. I want people to hear this. This was not something that Cherish really honestly wanted. You know what Cherish wanted? Cherish wanted to be a business owner that owned a high profile beauty salon that I was able to exercise my creativity and make people feel good about themselves. So there was always a little social work in there. And then I wanted a family. Those were the two things that I, Cherish, wanted very badly. And so my small yes, though, for me was an obedience. I'm a believer in Christ, and I believe that the Lord was really pulling my spirit to say, I have an assignment for you. And here is your challenge to either say yes, or you can go do what Cherish want. But I saw a huge and a bigger calling, and that's what I feel like the Lord showed me in that moment with those conferences. Do you see all these kids that need this, that need to hear your story, that need to hear that there's a healing that is possible, that this is not the end all be all, that there is way more than what this is? Like, so I'm doing something in you for them, and that's literally what I had. So I said, you know what, forget the cosmetology and the beauty salon business and even the family. I forgo the family for a second and I'm going to say yes to this. And so that's what I did. I gave a yes.
That's so amazing. Like, so amazing just to hear your story and to, hear that journey. I just, I think back to moment. I actually was one of those youth at a point in time that you came and spoke to and stuff like that. And I, like, as you were speaking, a lot of things still resonate with me, and I'm like, I actually use that, in talking to my clients. And I was just like, I had like two wonderful women. There was a lot of women in my life that really set a precedent for me to be the man that I am today. I'm pretty sure you remember Whitney Johnson, which was my NYNY coordinator, really stepped in to change the narrative for me about social workers, because I hadn't had a good social worker ever. It took her, it took her not even being my social worker to be the initiative to have conversations with me about being a Black male, about, when I was getting ready to age out. I remember her having these conversations like, look, you can't do certain things like other people,
Yeah.
and I remember you coming to speak and being on the panel and just, having a moment of realization that, there's not really a path backwards with my family, at that time. And I needed to look forward, and accept the presence of my life and try to, take initiative of it. And that's what really struck with me, is, not putting, myself in that victim stance. These things happen to me, and similar to you, which is why I'm doing this. I finally, stopped being disobedient, and I finally like, all right, God, this is what you want me to do. I need you to secure the bag, because
for sure.
It's not easy advocating. It's not easy doing social work, because I'm pretty sure everyone knows it's not like the bomb pay. Like it is not. But if you stick it out.
But Michael, I want to say, like, no, it's not the bomb pay. But let me tell you something. There are people, I have been able to be in circles with people who are working in corporate America and got those beautiful jobs, and wherever they are. And one thing that holds true is that it should not be about the pay. It should be about the fulfillment, because people will leave a job that's paying them $100,000 because a lot of people are looking for fulfillment. I just don't. There's so many people that leave jobs that I just don't feel fulfilled there. You know what I mean? I'm working and they're slaving and they're sacrificing having a family. They're sacrificing, traveling or doing whatever they're doing. So I always look at it like this. You are gifted and blessed if you are able, and you get the realization, you come and gain the awareness that money will come if you are pursuing your purpose, period. And a lot of people say, like, for social work, there's something that we're combating right now. It's like, oh, there's no money in social work. Yeah, it is. But the reality is that we have to channel our giftings and our talents and what we're bringing to the table, what makes us unique and different, and being able to leverage those things to be a solution or answer to the things that we see that need our talents. And then also asking for that money that comes with that, because what we have is value added, right? There's nobody, and I'm speaking to anybody, there's nobody that can replace the experiences that we have. So when we go speak and share our story, I want folks to own their story and be able to ask, for pay for that. And you're not doing it for the money, but you do need to survive. You do need to eat, and you no longer, people will treat you like that foster kid or that system child, because they want to use your story, but then don't want to pay you. Yeah, no. There's some things you choose to do for free, for sure, right? I'm going to do some things that's close to my heart. I get to choose to do it. But no longer are you in a system where you don't have choice. you know what I mean? Or your choices are limited. So I just want to encourage anybody, you know, who is sharing their story and things of that. Yeah, you do things, you choose what you do for free. And when you do casework and social work and out here, you know, working in child welfare, also know that there are ways to increase your salary, that you are not limited by what somebody will pay you, because there's other things that you can do that are still fulfilling and are making a difference. And I say that because I've done it. I'm doing it. You know what I mean? And there is ability to be free and not feel like I gotta eat, you know, sparingly, because I gotta go over here and do this because this over here is feeling a need, and I work for a nonprofit, and you know what I mean? Like
Right.
we can increase our value and what we get paid, you know, if we just use the talents and the gifts that God gives us and learn how to leverage those. And it's a journey, because you got to read and you got to study and you got to be creative, right? With what, you know, what you do. But I believe I don't want people to feel limited by not going into social work because, you know, a pay situation, because I do believe that, you know, your gift will make room for you. 100%, and whatever that requires. And I know, Michael, you've probably experienced this, like, because of that yes and that obedience, you probably got money, you know, and maybe I'm just speaking, maybe you got money you ain't expect to get. I know I've been in situations that because of me saying my yes, or, you know, pursuing, you know, this field and this assignment, God has made a way. He has provided for me and mine, you know, and I didn't necessarily, I asked for it, of course, in my heart, but I didn't necessarily believe that this would, you know, that I would do this or receive this. Or so I'm always grateful. You know, I'm always humbled and grateful for whatever I get.
Definitely. There's definitely been moments where, you know, I'm going to pump gas and I go look at my bank account, like, oh, look at this.
Right.
God, look at that. I could actually, you know what, put 20 on this.
Right. Right. We need that right now. Gas, $5.
Man. But I definitely agree. And, you know, there's a lot of stigmas and labels that we can talk about. But I love what you said. It's just not, you know, not limiting yourself. And one thing I would add to that is we're in a place in life with the atmosphere of what is going on in the world, where, you know, we think when we get out of something, we just need to go just take a job with Chuck. I'm a person that say, like, you know, you got to do what you got to do to survive. But also I would say, don't be afraid to start out taking those risks towards something that you truly believe in. I'm a person that's doing it now.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to tell you guys anything that I haven't experienced. Like my resume is like 7 pages because I've did so many different jobs and I just settled with those jobs. I told myself, you know, I was going to, in 2022, start investing in my own dreams and own things that I feel like has been caught upon in my life, you know, and that's building a foundation, being able to bring a platform, you know, for professionals, you know, alumni and what have you, to be able to share their voices, you know, and to help educate people through the guests being able to share their voices and stuff like that, you know. And I don't know, you know, just like Terry said, I don't know what may become of this. I really don't, you know, but I feel like this is something that I'm supposed to do. And I'm just continuing to work towards, you know, what I feel like I'm called to do at a very young age, you know. And my experience of being in residentials and being in those group-based programs, I realized that I wasn't here put on this earth for myself, you know. And realizing that and growing up to be an adult, I realized that we affect people each and every day, no matter how we think or how small we think what we're doing or what we're saying is. If I go talk to somebody today and just say, like, look, I don't know what you're going through, but you can make it, that's going to affect that person and then affect somebody else that person talks to, you know. Right. And that's going to spread. So not to go too much on a tangent or anything like that, just, you know, see value in what you're doing and your dreams and stuff like that, and chase them. Don't be afraid to take those risks, but also be strategic. You know, one thing I did do, and all the things that I've worked and stuff like that, is take lessons from each and every job that I've had, Uh, and I've done everything from landscaping to detailing cars. And I took in each and every one of those experiences and applied them to what I do now and what I plan to do in the future. And just try to take the value out of it. But my last couple questions for you, Cherish, and I just want to say I appreciate your honesty and your vulnerability, being able to share your experience and your expertise. Is COVID has affected all of us in many different ways. How did you deal with that as a professional, as a social worker? Like, what did that look like for you living in this world of pandemic?
I'll have to be honest, like it COVID affected me stress-wise because of I guess the how do I put it, the media that was around it, what they were saying and how bad it was. So I was more so in fear initially because of what it seemed to look like, right? Before it even touched, my life, honestly. So it was just kind of really on a panic before things started to unfold. So there was some high stress moments, but if I'm honest, during the pandemic, I was blessed. Like, I had opportunity, and had made more money than I had made prior. So financially, it allowed me to to move to North Carolina. Like we sold my house. My house would have never, probably got where it went. Although I believe that it was of value, but because the way the market had crashed years ago, I thought it was just never going to get up to the value that I felt like it deserved, and it did. And it was a blessing, because then I was able to make some moves. And I feel like COVID honestly was a teacher for me. It taught me, it was a season of transition, for me, in a lot of ways, transition of letting go, and really trusting God, on a new level, because, I had been in Michigan, since like I was 16 years old. And, I had found my people up there, and so that was like what I had created everything there. I had, really put a stake in my career in Michigan. I had built my career in Michigan and everything that I knew, the relationships, everybody. And one day the Lord was like, go. And I was like, what? Go where? What do you mean? And I'm pregnant at the time too. So it was very akin to almost even my pregnancy, where it was like I had to trust of an unknown process, know that there was a blessing on the other end, but really not sure, and anticipating, the delivery of the blessing. But it was a ton that was going on. And, there was some frightening spaces. So it did start to affect our family. We saw some lives lost, in that process. But there was such a bigger move of God in my life during the pandemic. And I know that's not everybody's story. And I empathize with other people that didn't have that kind of experience. Truly, I do. And I'm very mindful of that, which is why I'm incredibly humbled that, the Lord did bless me through that time and take and carry me and my family, from Michigan, and taking care of us in that transition and getting us to, now I live in North Carolina, and really starting something new for us, and really and having to trust in God, career wise, to provide for us financially, everything. So honestly, my experience, there were definitely high stress moments, because there was a lot of stuff that we were waiting on. So when I was, as a professional working in the field during the time that I did, we were very unsure as to what the plan was and how we would care for the kids. What would that look like, when you talk about, government kind of taking control and, everybody panicking, what did that mean? Will we still be able to show up every day? That was even a question, like, oh, we gonna show up, we gonna in camp because we gonna keep these kids straight. You know what I mean? Like we was ready, and it was like, okay, what we gonna do? I guess all the family gonna be together up here because we gonna not leave these kids. They ain't got nobody. So we gonna be right here with them, so there was those moments, just kind of like letting your imagination get carried away a little bit and really nervous about the whole situation. But then there was like I said, just that transition moment. So I feel incredibly blessed, to have also learned so many things during COVID. It allowed me to give birth to my podcast, Child Welfare Leaders, which kind of really grew out of some frustrations, with the system, really kind of seeing barriers and constantly being like, why are we fighting for kids to get the support? Like, we shouldn't be fighting for the kids to get the support that they're supposed to get anyway, because you took them out of their home to place them in the system to give them better, until they can return home or, be adopted or whatever. So it's like, I'm fighting for something that they already have the right to. Like, are you serious? So I think with all of those frustrations, I kept having conversations with other people about just what I kind of like, how I would talk to you and be like, what are we doing? Blah, blah, blah. And I said, it was time for trying to find an outlet to say, okay, I'm tired of talking behind closed doors about these issues. I want to bring them more to a place where we can have open discussion about it. It wasn't about exposing anything, but it was about connecting with people, because I know if they were anything like me, that they may have been losing a little bit of that passion. They may have been really kind of getting weary and tired of, child welfare and all of the things that come with working in a bureaucratic system, right? You come in to affect change in lives, and then you end up over here fighting for things that really kids have the right to, or you fighting to get people to truly understand, to get it, you know what I mean? And nobody gets it like you get it. So I've also experienced the part which, you get it and you're the alumni, you have the lived experience, but people think, oh, well, now you're transferring your experience onto your passion of advocating. And it's like, I could do a whole show on that, like negative. I think if anything, it makes me a better advocate, and it ain't about me, it's about this kid and the fact that I'm fighting you for services, or we jumping through hoops when they need services now, but yet I'm still waiting 6 months after the fact to get something that was supposed to have been done a long time ago. So it's, of course, it was just wanting a space to kind of talk about that and talk about what people are doing well. Like, what are they doing to be innovative, and talking to professionals, guests, and talking about issues that we see, but, taking the space to talk to the professional side, right? So I'm on the professional side, and I feel like I wanted to nurture a little bit of the child welfare professionals, and people who want to lead, and like-minded people like myself who will do anything to advocate for the kid, and truly understand the kid and get the kid. And those are the people that I wanted on, the podcast, so that we could talk and kind of nurture a little bit about that. Because I feel like if we take care of our people, who work in the field, then they're going to take care of our kids. And so that's my thought. But if we are constantly overworking, traumatizing, and all these other things, the people that work with the kids, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to be burnt out. They're not going to be able to give something from an empty cup. We got to fill their cups, So that's really what child welfare leaders are supposed to do, is empower, educate, uplift, and really reignite that passion that people came into the system with.
Definitely. Thank you for that. My next question is what's next for you? I don't know if you kind of already responded upon it, but what's next for you?
Man, what's next for me? I gotta say, like, I'm really just following the leading of the Lord. I feel like what's next for me is I am a business owner of Cherish Fields Solutions, which is a consulting organization, agency that basically I'm hoping to get into, where I'm doing more independent work, where I can work with professionals in a more professional development. But also I work not only with the professionals, but the organizations, helping them, sometimes what happens in the system is there's system changes that happen, policy changes, and organizations maybe are unable to keep up, they're surviving. So they would contact me and I will offer a solution to evaluate their processes, programs, and their policies to actually bring them up to par with the current policies, with, offering quality services and helping them not to just survive the current conditions of the system, but actually provide quality services for kids. And that I would empower their staff and do staff training. So it'd be a comprehensive package of solutions that would be provided to them so that people can honestly operate optimally versus just on a survival. I would work with individuals, right? Individuals who maybe have experiences, feeling limited or feeling, really just confined to their circumstances, or like, this is it for me. Well, I could work with them as well through, public speaking. You've heard me speak, but going other places and being able to speak, not just to those with lived experience in foster care, but other people. Because that's one of the things that I learned in college, is that my experiences are not limited to just being in foster care. There are other people that have had like experiences like me. Just like I said, when I was adopted, I was already experiencing homelessness. I was already being moved place to place. So I had already experienced those things before entering the system. So therefore, there is also a need to speak to those people as well. And so my hope is to extend, just some empowerment, and transforming people's mindsets. I mean, that's really what my organization is about, transforming mindsets and really using that as a way of system change and system transformation, speaking to the people. It starts with the belief. What do we believe? And that's how we act. That's how we behave. That's how we practice. So to improve how we practice and how we behave, we got to improve what we believe and the approaches that we take. And so that's really what I want to pour more into that, continue to podcast, of course, continue to use my voice to speak and advocate and be a part of true change in the system. But yeah, absolutely. I believe that my assignment from God is to absolutely utilize all that I have gone through to benefit those in this space, in the child welfare field. And I believe that I can definitely be a participant in changing how people experience the system. I believe that my part to play is to improve how people experience the system.
Definitely. I look forward, and I'm pretty sure some of the audience members look forward to continue to following the work that you're doing, and so forth. My last question, is what tips and tidbits do you have for social workers and foster care alumni out there?
All right, tips and tidbits. Well, first, to the professionals, I speak to the professional, is tips I would say is, first, I would check yourself. I say evaluate what you believe in regard to kids. And I say this to say, be mindful of what you read and how you allow what you read in someone's case file to affect how you think of somebody. Because a lot of times, kids are not what youth and kids and families are, not just words on a paper. They have real experiences. And so I want people to not sympathize, because kids and youth and families don't need your sympathy. They need empathy. They need you to step outside yourself for a hot second to really say, if I had to be in their shoes for once, what could I do to really meet the need of this person? And it's not going to be our administrative bureaucracy system solution. It's going to be us as a human being impacting that family, that youth, through listening, but also putting aside what we think to really listen to what they think and how what they have experienced and what their needs are, and then being able to utilize that with the knowledge, the education, the skills that we have as professionals, and tying that and connecting them to the resources that we know about that maybe they don't. So it's one, that's the first thing, is we got to check ourselves and we have to evaluate and reflect from our standpoint, our positions, and understanding our power, right? Like though sometimes as professionals, we feel powerless, we are very, very powerful, because just our position makes us powerful, because we make decisions on behalf of families. That is powerful. So we also have to be mindful of our words and what we say to kids. So I always say, you got to keep your mouth off of children, because they are the future. So if you say, oh, you'll never be this if you keep acting that way, I think you got to be careful. You got to call kids to what you believe they are. You are powerful and you're going to overcome this situation. This is just a small piece of your life. So you don't have to sit up here and sit here and park here. You have the ability to move from this space, because there's such a brighter future for you in the future. You got to get them to start seeing their future, not their circumstance. And if we can have more professionals do that versus looking at the current behavior of right now, we can see more kids believe in themselves, because it will be a purposeful commitment for them to change their language of how they interact and how they communicate with kids on a daily basis, because kids will hear more of the positive than they hear the limitations. For the youth that are in the system, the young adults that are aging out, I would say to them, very much so, tips and tidbits is, don't let this system take control of you. Please do not allow what you have gone through be a disadvantage or be seen as something that cripples you from all of what life has for you. Because what life has for you is much better and gets better than what your current circumstances may look like. Is it hard? Absolutely. Will it be tough times? Sure will. But I absolutely love give big ups to Nipsey Hussle, but it's truly a marathon. It truly is a marathon that continues. And a marathon means that no matter how hard it gets, no matter what is going on, I am not going to quit. I'm going to continue to run my race. I'm going to continue to fight until the flag is flung, because at the end of the day, this is what I believe. Life will happen. But it's not just going to happen to me. I'm going to take what has happened in life and I am going to happen to it, meaning that I'm going to take everything that I've gone through and put that, basically utilize it, leverage it for better, because there is more. There is something more. So I need people, I want those who are aging out, who have lived experience, to understand that there is more than this. There's absolutely more. And if you hear the stories that Michael has had on his podcast, you hear other stories, people who have shared their experiences, you hear that honestly, there's more success stories than what people like you to believe, that you are not just a victim to a small fraction of a statistic, because everybody did not take the survey. Okay. It doesn't encompass everything. That's just a small fraction of who we truly are, let alone what represents us. So let's really show the system the fact that there is value in each of us, and we are worthy of the investment of our future and in our lives. And you are your own best advocate. Don't wait for somebody to speak up for you. You speak up for yourself.
Wow. Such powerful words, such powerful words. I love a special part, not letting life happen to you, and realizing that life will happen. Like, that's the inevitable. Like, stuff will happen. There will be barriers on any road that you face and stuff like that. And that's a wonderful thing that, and ending this out, I realized is that when I got to a place to be able to, not frown, not get upset, not, whoa, why me? When I was struck with a place of struggle or a test and trial in life, I finally got to a place where I was like excited when,
Yeah.
when God put me in a place of a storm, because I knew that there was lessons that was worth lifetimes of knowledge in the midst of what I was going through presently. It's not going to be great. It's not going to be awesome,
Right.
but I'm learning something throughout this that I need to know. Yeah, the blessing came after, but the blessing was kind of temporary.
Yeah.
That knowledge that I gained throughout being in that, it has lasted me ample times, and as I've been able to use it many times throughout my life. And I feel like as a people, if we be able to not get in a place of situational depression and sadness, or why am I going through this, when we are struggling, and be able to kind of be slightly optimistic and be like, what am I supposed to get in the midst of this? What am I missing? And try to critically think and get deeper. We would do better, feel better in a sense, and I know there's different
I agree with that.
situations. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that phrase, life happens, but you happen. Life really was inspired by a bishop of mine, and he said it so powerfully, and it's something that really resonated with me. And I was like, you know what, that's real, and it doesn't mean, like you said, depression, mental health things. Nothing is wrong with you. Something happened to you, and you have to allow what you're going through to go through it, to allow to pass through your body and to accept it. Because when you reject it, what happens is it just gets worse. So I allowed my body to really go through that process, and I accepted the fact. Doesn't mean that I allowed it to just be the whole story, but when I accepted, like, I was in foster care, or you know what, hey, this is the reality of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Once you go through that acceptance period and you allow it to flow, then you say, I have power to change all of that. So when you recognize the power that is within you, which does take vulnerability, an indescribable amount of vulnerability, then you are a lot, then you then can get in touch with the power that you have to use that, leverage it, and be so much more of what you want to be, because we get to mold and shape who we become, and we get more power, especially when you leave out the system. You know what I mean? In the system, you got power too, a lot more power, than what people realize. But when you come out, there you have utilized that power, right? So truly, it's, you don't have to allow life to take over and say, well, this is my life. No, you can say, well, life happened, but I'm about to take all of this and show life. I'm gonna own my life. I'm gonna own my life, and I'm gonna take advantage of my life and become who I just choose to become, and not what life wanted me to become.
Definitely. I just want to say it has been an honor and to speak with you today. And I appreciate, your openness and being able to be honest and share your truth and your experience. I look forward to continue to see your work. And you guys, that's listening, go check out Cherish Podcast. Go support it. There's a lot of knowledge that she has and her guest has. I'm a big person. We got to support each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
So go check it out. And yeah. As I always say, I'm trying to be consistent with this. COVID is out there. It's real. Probably ain't going nowhere. Please be safe. Take care of yourself. If you're thinking about getting vaccinated, do your research, get it done. Don't procrastinate. If it ain't for you, that is your choice. Not to get political about it, whatever. But make sure that you're taking care of yourself and taking care of your family, because by doing that simple thing of washing your hands, following precautions, wearing a mask, all these different things, you are taking care of this big old village that we call the world. And it's not just one small step, and I know everybody has their different beliefs and whichever, but, we got to do our part to take care of each other, and that's one thing that I would say COVID has highlighted, for all of us. So that's my little spiel. I appreciate you guys for listening. I appreciate you guys for the support. I'm getting ready to end season 1 here shortly. I have a couple more people coming up, so please stay tuned. But I just want to thank you guys for being a support and, just rallying around the work that I'm doing and this podcast. You guys have a good night, good morning, good evening, good whenever you're listening to this. And just thank you.
Thank you.